Okay, so with Photoshop, with CS6, there's the 3D option. It's a much better 3D than in previous versions of Photoshop. When you look at your view on your workspace, you have a 3D view. So far, we've been just using the essentials, but there is a 3D workspace. So when you click on 3D workspace, you get these new palettes. Okay, you've got a 3D palette and then a properties. Very important that we have all of these palettes open. The 3D palette, the properties palette, and then also your layers palette. Okay, you always should have your layers palette open in Photoshop so you know what layer you're working on. Your comic book, the dimensions for the comic book cover are 8.5 by 11, 300 resolution. Your title for the comic book has to be in 3D. So I'm going to show you how to make text 3D. Okay, up along the top, you now have, or we're going to be working with the 3D drop-down. Okay, you guys see that on the screen? 3D, that's where you go to make something 3D. Go to 3D, and you want new 3D extrusion from selected layer. Okay, and when you click on that option, you now have the 3D, your text goes into 3D. These are your different, where you can move them. Okay, so this is new, that shows up when you go to 3D. These are all the different ways that you can move your object. And if you roll over it, it will tell you, like this rotates the 3D object, so we can rotate it around. And this one's going to roll it. This one, now that it's 3D, you have your X, your Y, and your Z coordinates. Okay, so what this one does is it just moves it on the X and the Y. Okay, so up and down, left and right. This moves it on the Z, which goes away from you or towards you. And then this is just a different camera view. Okay, so those are all of the different ways to move your text. All right, so those are all the different ways that you can move your text. You can also do 3D with an object. We're just working with text right now. One thing to note, if it's too complicated of a font, you won't be able to turn it 3D. Okay, so the fonts that you get from defont.com or any of the really complicated fonts, it'll put a warning up there that it cannot create it because it's too complicated. To get out of your 3D view, like to get out of the grid, you just click on another tool in your toolbar, and it will take you out of it. Anytime you go back to that layer and you click on your Move tool, it'll bring you back to your 3D grid. Okay, the different palettes. Right here, notice how when I click on the different options over here, my properties change. So what you want to do if you want to change, let's say the extrusion depth. The extrusion depth is like how far back it goes. If you want to change that, you have to be in the 3D palette, click on your text, and then over here in your properties, you have your extrusion depth option. Okay, but that only shows up when you're on the text. Okay. You also have different options up here in your properties, like you can deform it, which don't go crazy with the deform because it freezes up the computers. But you can like twist it around. You can cap it, which is like a bevel on it. Okay, these underneath your text, these are all like your material options, the colors that you can make your text. You can change the text color. Because notice how when I go back to my type tool, like I can't just type on this. It is no longer a type layer. It is a 3D layer. Okay, so what you want to do, if you need to change the color of it, that's right here with all of your material settings. So this is the front. Okay, the first one's your front, and you can change that color. The next one is the bevel. The extrusion, if you want to change the extrusion so it's not black, you can do that. So that's how you change your colors. You also have this option here. You can do like different patterns. Okay, so let's say you want the front to be a pattern, like a checkerboard. You can, those are your options here. The other thing in your 3D palette is this infinite light down at the bottom. This infinite light, you can move your light source, which will then change where your shadow is. So that's what the infinite light option is down there. And then finally, let's say you want to change your text. Okay, you don't want it to say 3D text. You want it to say Piper. Okay, so look up here. Let me show you how to do that because it's a little different than probably anything you've done before. On my text, in the properties, there is an edit source option. When you click on edit source, it opens it up in a brand new tab. Okay, so there is my new tab. And I can edit the text here. And then I just do a Command S, which is save. Okay, I don't save as, I don't need to go up to File, Save. I know that that shortcut is Command S. And when I save it, you go back to your document, and then there it is. It's changed. Okay, with all of the settings that you kept are over here. Okay, finally with this, once you have your text layer and it's 3D, the way that you add other layers is the same way that you do it with any of your other projects. When you add a new layer, that 3D will go away. This layer is no longer, the layer 1 that you just added is not 3D unless you go up and you make it 3D. Okay, so for this project, you're going to have your 3D text layer, and then you're going to have other layers that are included, and they do not have to be 3D. Okay, so the project is going to be comic book. Your text has to be 3D. The other elements you are building from scratch, just like your magazine. And you're going to use brushes. You can create brushes, and I'll show you how to find these different brushes. So these are some of the examples.